We'd like to do a song tonight for you that's been done before by Danny and Debbie, and they did a great job, and we can't top that. We just want to sing glory to the Lord, okay? We want to praise His name. And it's been on our heart to do something like this for Him for a long time. We hope you receive a blessing from it. First of all, I'd like to say most everybody in here has been on a trip before, like a long trip, maybe gone from home a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even a month. And then you start craving to go home. And there's no place like home. Like Dorothy said in The Wizard of Oz, no place like home. So I know when I moved out of my apartment, when I married Robin, I was in a one-bedroom apartment. It was just the right size for me. It was just me. But then I moved into her house, and her house is like a mansion compared to what I had. It's kind of like what it's going to be when we get to heaven, folks. We think we have it all in this world lots of times. It's nothing compared to what God has prepared for those who love Him. In fact, in the book of John, verse 14, chapter 14, verse 1, it says, "Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions," not just one, but many. "If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you," for us personally. "And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also." So we have the love and joy and peace of Jesus in our hearts now, but it's nothing compared to what it's going to be when we see Him face to face every day. And every day is day in heaven. There is no night. The light of the throne of God lights everything continuously. And I don't think we'll need any sleep. We'll have so much energy, we'll feel like we're 20 or 30 again. It's going to be wonderful. I know it will be for me. But anyway, we're going to sing Mansion Over a Hilltop. I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom shall shine, I want a gold one that's silver lined. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk on streets that are pure as gold. Though often tempted, tormented and tested, and like the prophet, my pillow a stone. And though I find here no permanent dwelling, I know He'll give me a mansion my own. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where He'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk on streets that are pure as gold. Don't think me poor or deserted or lonely. I'm not discouraged. I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of a city. I want a mansion, a harp and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk on streets that are pure as gold. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop, in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will never more wander, but walk on streets that are pure as gold. Thank you.
Good job, Gene, Robin, Mona Ray. Get you up here some more. I remember I learned that song. I think Shelley probably might remember this too, when we were young kids, probably 8, 9, 10, 11, going to the Chapel of Prayer in Akron, and across from Chapel Hill Mall there. We used to go on Sundays, and I remember learning that song and singing it real loud. We had, back then, I remember all the kids that were in the Sunday morning classes. We filled up a whole section. There were 50 of us at least, and we would sing at the top of our lungs. I know when April and I started having our kids back in the early 90s, we got married in that church. And we were looking for a church, and we started going around looking at churches, so we went back there and looked, and there were no kids, none. Everybody, this was about the size of the Sunday morning congregation, and we were probably the youngest ones there, and that was in the 90s. And you know how it's fallen off since then. It's even fallen off even more. But great song. I remember learning that when I was a young kid. It's funny how things will take your mind back. For me, being somebody that went into history and stuff like that, I've told you lots of times there's bubbles above my head where I can see or think of things. And when I have things trigger things in my mind, it's almost like a TV show. Like I go back in time and I'm there. And I can literally see stuff going on all around me that was happening at the time. And I don't know why my mind thinks that way, but it does. You know, I'm sitting up here right now, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a lesson tonight. You're probably thinking, oh my gosh, here he goes again with that gum. I had the gum and a cough drop in my mouth this morning because I told you how dry I'm getting. And I'm thinking, I think I can pull this off. I didn't. I found out about it when I got out to the lobby. It's funny how your daughter and your wife tell you like it is, huh? So anybody that has to watch this on our website, I'm sorry. You might want to turn it down so you don't hear me chomping. I'll try to do it with just a cough drop tonight. Well, it seems God is talking to one of his angels, and he says, do you know what I have just done? I have just created 24 hours of alternating light and darkness on earth. Isn't that good? And the angel said, yes, but what will you do now? And God said, I think I'll call it a day. Imagine the conversations God's had up in heaven with people, the different angels and Jesus, and just with everything he's done. I think about all the boasters and cocky people that are around our civilization today, and all you got to do is think about one thing God did, and nobody comes close to that, do they? All right, let's bow our heads for a quick word of prayer. Lord, I just hope that you give me the right words to say today. This is a message that I've kind of brought before in different ways, and I hope I bring it in a different way tonight. I ask, Lord, that you help the people of this church, be with Bob Evans tomorrow in the surgery, let things go well there, guide the doctor's hands. I ask that you be with Joyce Hughes, and I ask that you just be with the people that are hurting and suffering in this church right now, Lord. And we don't want to see anybody suffer, especially if we know that they're going to be with you. And I know I've had people of this church share with me from time to time that, they're ready to go home. They've had enough suffering. I just ask, Lord, that you help those people, you build a hedge of protection around them, build a hedge of protection around our families. This church, bring Pastor and Diane back safely from Indiana. Let this be a great week for all of us, Lord, and I just hope that somebody in each one of our lives this week comes to know you, Lord. And we ask all these things in thy Son's name. Amen. All right, we're going to be in 2 Timothy chapter 3. Lots of scripture here that people are familiar with. I've preached on it, I think, over the years, in the last 10 years, probably a couple times. If some of it starts sounding redundant tonight, stay with me, because at the end, hopefully I can tell you why I brought this message again. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. We're going to be in chapter 3 of 2 Timothy. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof, from such turn away. It's not a bright future, as we talked about today, for what's coming down the road. For us, for the church, Christians are going to be persecuted. It's going to get bad after the rapture for those that are left behind, especially in that last 3.5 years. There's going to be, and there has been, false leaders in the churches in the last days. We've got them all around us now. Again, what I said this morning is what I was going to talk about today, and tonight was kind of a prelude into the rapture and the 7 years of trial and tribulation, and I believe that's where we're at today. Got people that are leading churches only to make money. You just heard what Adolf said about one of the pastors that's on TV that's worth over $80 million. You got people that are preaching false doctrines. And it's been going on for quite some time. I know of people that I love and respect that have went to churches and thought their pastor was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and their pastor was a woman. That's not biblical. When you talk to them about it, they get offended if you tell them that. You show them in the Bible, and they justify it. Kind of what's going on today with everything when you sit down and you talk to somebody that's for one of the immoral political parties that's leading our country. The truths will be turned into fables. Talked about this a couple weeks ago with socialism, how they're tearing down monuments. They're trying to rewrite history books, rewrite books for school, so that they can take this generation that's coming up and totally just wipe out history and change their minds on what really happened and lead them down a path of destruction. There's churches today that you go to, and there have been for years, I've been in them, I'm not going to name denominations or anything, where you don't ever really hear about salvation. You go there, and I just think, what if you were somebody that came to that church, you were thinking about committing suicide that day, and nobody said anything to you about salvation that day, and then nothing really hit home with you, and you went and did it. I kind of think that blood's on the hands of that pastor or that priest. One world religions, one world monies, one world governments, all things that are coming down the pike real soon. Where might the religion come from? This is just my thoughts. It's not anything in the Bible I can prove. But I just think that when you start looking at where we're at now, coming down the pike for a one world religion, where is the Antichrist going to come up through and be able to hit the most people? I just kind of think it's going to be Catholicism. And if it's not that, some people might say it's the Muslim world, but I just don't think that would hit Western culture at all. So I've said that to a few friends that are Catholic, and they're ready to punch me. And I said, I'm not saying it's in the Bible, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying for the Antichrist to reach a lot of people, and we know that the Antichrist is going to come up through Rome and Italy, it sure makes sense. Let's go to Acts chapter 20, verses 29 through 30. Acts 29, or chapter 20, verse 29 through 30. Paul's warning the church of Ephesus here, and he says, "For I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. Also of your own selves shall man arise, speaking perverse things to draw away disciples after them." Ever since the time that Paul and the apostles left the earth, after Jesus Christ ascended into heaven, people have been looking for the second coming of Jesus Christ. And everybody's been thinking it's going to be in their generation. Well, you're talking over 2,000 years people have been thinking this. But once the Bible was written and circulated throughout the world, we find out, we know why it didn't take place any earlier, because the things that it talks about that must happen in the world couldn't have happened. The technology wasn't there. The things that have to happen wasn't there. The Bible has to be spread around the entire world. It's the last thing that has to be going on in this world. The Bible doesn't teach that the church is going to convert the world. I believe we're moving into the last days of the church, and the following things are so manifested today that we are in those perilous times that I just read. I'm going to kind of pick apart these verses that I just read. Men are lovers of their own selves. Never before do I remember a time where men were more lovers of their own selves in my 60 years almost of life. Politicians, people in Hollywood, the sports world, church leaders, churches, preaching things that make you feel good, not talking about salvation, all worried about the mighty dollar, fame and fortune. I'm sure those things have went on in many other generations, but it seems like today it's more prevalent than ever. We have billionaires, people that are making billions of dollars that could be making such a huge difference for the world. I told you before I was a basketball coach, and in 1999 and 2000, I was fortunate enough to be blessed with earning the honors of the Coach of the Year for the Akron Touchdown Club, Plain Dealer Division II, and I got to go to a couple banquets with some of the Cavaliers. That was before LeBron was playing in the pros. He was still in high school at St. V, but he sat with a couple tables over from April and I in Akron at Guy's Party Center for the Akron Touchdown Club's award. That guy's a millionaire now. When he came out of St. V and played for the Cavs, I thought he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. You know, here's a kid that I got to see grow up and follow, and I was a basketball coach. And boy, has he disappointed me down the last few years. He's a billionaire. His nickname is King James. What could that guy be doing for God right now? With all the money he has, the notoriety that he has, and the amount of people that love and worship that guy. What a missed opportunity. Covetous, lovers of money. The love of money is the root of all evil. Money itself is not evil, but the love of money is evil. This causes men to do evil things. Just look at what's going on. Some of the worst things that could happen would be, in my opinion, what's happening prevalently today in our country, in Mexico, and around the world, and that's sex trafficking. All for the love of money. These poor children that are being destroyed and put into that just makes me sick. Selling drugs, prostitution, pornography. You know, even in one of the things that I like to do, golf, this live golf that Saudi Arabia is now a part of. They paid some of these guys over $100 million just to become a part of that. And some of them went into it because of the money. They didn't do it because they thought it was the right thing to do. They did it because they thought, wow, $100 million, I'll never make that here in the United States. That'll take care of my family forever. So it was the love of money that led them to go into that. Boasters and proud men full of themselves. You can tell sometimes a man's a proud man by their walk, right? Remember George Jefferson? I used to hear my mom and dad said he'd strut like a bandy rooster. You got people that walk around like that today. Oftentimes you can tell by their talk, that they're full of themselves. The way they spend their money, the way they oftentimes foolishly spend their money. And, I think President Trump did a nice job when he was in there as our president. I think he had us in a good point right before COVID hit. And I think he may be one of the only people that can get us back somewhere close to that with all the wrongdoings that's happened in the last 2 to 3 years. If that guy would just quit talking the way he talks. If he would quit, downgrading people and just speaking with such conceit, he could do so many good things for the world. Imagine if he became humble and started talking about God, what good he could do for our country. And maybe the world. Maybe it would prolong for our generation, our children's generation, our grandchildren's generation, the second coming of Christ, and maybe the United States could build back up again. I think if he did those things, he could win by a landslide. But I might be foolishly thinking of that because right now I think we're a minority. And as I said today, there's an immoral majority. Blasphemers, speaking ill will of others, not minding their own business, always poking their nose into other people's business. Today's social media people are able to say anything about anyone and get away with it. Disobedient to parents. Look at the stealing and the looting and the rioting that's went on in the last few years and is still going on in our country and our cities. Do you think parents taught their children to do that? How embarrassed must parents be when they find out their children are doing that? Now, I know there are some people that are okay with it, and they're probably right out there with their kids doing it. And socialism wants you to feel a sense of entitlement, that you're entitled to those things, and some of the prosecutors in these cities and stuff are not prosecuting because they feel like there's people that have been oppressed throughout the years in our country, the different minorities and things of that nature. But I got to tell you, there's no good that's going to come out of that. Stories of children killing their parents we've heard over the last 30, 40 years, just beyond my imagination. Unthankful. Many people don't thank others, just feel entitled to things. How many times do you open up a door for somebody going into a restaurant now and they don't say thank you? They just go right walking in. I always try to make a point to say thank you or hold the door open for someone else, that kind of, just something simple like that. How many people thank God for the good things in their life nowadays? How many people do you see doing that? It's through today's youth and minorities are made to feel like they're entitled to things through the Democratic Party's propaganda. They're trying to funnel everything to socialism. That's why we got so many jobs that are unfilled right now. We've passed out so much money that we're bankrupting our country. Unholy. Look at our society. Abortion, television shows, politicians, sex, 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 money, money, money. Russia said back in the 1960s they were going to do this to us, and they did it. Politicians are doing away with God. They're letting the immoral majority dictate and rule the policies in society, government, and schools. What was once good is now evil, and what was once evil is now good. Without natural affection means having abnormal relations. Homosexuality, immorality, transgenderism. It's looked at as normal conduct by more than probably 50% of our country and around the world. It's accepted, and if you speak out against these things, you're not labeled as a racist or looked at as being, you are looked at as a racist, and you're looked at as being a bad person for not accepting this majority, this immoral majority's cancel culture. Truce breakers are people impossible to get along with. Christians are looked at today as being wrong for trying to preach what was right. You'll hear people justify, well, you can say all you want to say about the Bible. It was written by man. It was written by men who were inspired by God. And if you don't believe that, I feel sorry for you, because you're probably going to spend eternity in hell. False accusers. People can accuse anyone of anything, and oftentimes it can ruin their life. You can be labeled as a racist or a horrific thing, and it oftentimes sticks with you even though it might not be true. Because as soon as something negative is labeled on a person, the media swoops down on it and they just amplify it. Incontinent, without self-control. Crime, sex trafficking, border issues, rape, murders, looting, robbing, boasting. Need I say more? Is there anything that I've said so far that doesn't make you think of this as the world we're living in today? Anything? How many of you feel 100% what I'm saying right now is the world we're living in today? Okay. Fierce means savage. Our streets are unsafe in our cities. Elderly people are being beaten by individuals. Gangs, punks, knocking elderly women and men down, taking their money, beating them to death, and nobody does anything about it. Our politicians have defunded the police, and they're doing nothing about it. Our border crisis is one of the most horrific things that's ever happened to this country. And it will ruin us if those people are not taken back to their countries. And if the Democrats win, that will not happen, and we're done. We're done. We have to have somebody in there that's going to step up and do that. Sex trafficking, as I said before. The abortion, I heard some people talking about it in the church today, where you can abort these babies right up to birth because you don't want them. Unbelievable. That's Sodom and Gomorrah times we're living in. Absolutely horrible that that's something that anybody in this country would justify. Despisers of those that are good. Again, good is now evil. Evil is now good. The devil is corrupting the minds of the immoral majority around the world. You are wrong if you don't accept their viewpoints. Traitors, betrayers. I think of our government and what's going on in our country. Just think about the exit from Afghanistan under this presidency. Anybody in here serving the military? Several hands going up. Anybody in here got anybody that has a son or daughter that served in the military? Okay. How would you have felt if your son or your daughter, or that would have been you, that got left behind in Afghanistan to be murdered? What a traitor. I never thought I'd see our government intentionally tear our country apart. I never thought I'd see our government intentionally pit us against each other. And I never thought I'd see our government tear us down so much that we can't come back from it. I was talking to somebody about this today, and it's funny because I know there's starting to be rumors of this, but I thought about this a couple months ago. I don't think if President Trump gets the Republican nomination, I don't think he'll be running against Biden. I think there's too many people now, even in his own party, turning on him. And I think they see one avenue that they think there's no way they're going to get beat, and that's Michelle Obama. God help us if that happens. I'm not so sure her husband, ex-President Obama, is not calling the shots from behind the scenes now. Heady meaning reckless. I have in here, C government. High-minded, blinded by pride. Again, politicians, Hollywood, athletes. Lovers of pleasures more than lovers of God. Today I watched the Cleveland Browns. Boy, did their defense look good today. And finally, Watson broke out of it and looked good. Man, I hated to see Nick Chubb get hurt the other night on Monday Night Football. That's my favorite player. I have his jersey, and if he was going to speak somewhere, I'd go listen to him and have him sign my jersey. That man was fun to watch run. He'd drag people with him. He'd get through the hole strong as an ox, fast as an ox, and one of the most humble people you'll ever see in athletics today. He scores a touchdown. He hands the ball to the official. He doesn't act like he's never been there before. I sure hope that man comes back from that. Monday night after they lost to the Steelers, though, I could have punched my fist through about 3 slabs of concrete. I can't stand losing to the Steelers. I can't stand losing to Michigan. Ugh. And I can't stand losing to the Yankees. The amount of money paid to our athletes, our actors, and our singers now is just beyond belief. Deshaun Watson, $50 million guaranteed a year. Gosh. I got a master's. I was within a year of getting a doctorate, and for 32 years I tried to do what was right and teach young children what was right from wrong. I tried to, even in public schools, teach them about God, educate them, coach them to the best of my ability, and then try to run a school district as a man of God. And I didn't even come close to making that. My first year in 1989, I made $12,000. My last year, I made $110,000. Those guys are making $110,000 by the minute. It's unbelievable. And we're paying our school teachers $35,000 a year to start out. No wonder nobody wants to go into that. Do you want to put up with all the garbage going on in the schools right now for $35,000 a year? We have a shortage of teachers, folks, in this country, and it's only going to get worse. Having a form of godliness by denying the power thereof. Go through the rituals of religion, but not really living the way God wants us to. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to stand up here and sound proud when I say that. I go through every week and I do things that I'm ashamed of, that I say, I think, that I ask God for forgiveness of throughout the day. I think pretty much all of us are that way, and we probably will be till the day we die. And it started with Adam and Eve. There are dead, liberal, feel-good churches that are out there today, though, that don't follow God's word and teaching today. And they have tons of people in them, not unlike what was alluded to earlier by Adolf. And we all probably know people that are at different churches or have been through the years. Here's my test. I've always asked people, when you die, are you going to heaven? And I want to hear their response. And if they say, well, I'd like to think so. And I say, well, why would you like to think so? And a lot of times I hear, well, I consider myself to be a good person. And I said, what chapter of the Bible does it say if I'm a good person, do I get to go to heaven? Well, I don't know. But that's kind of a chance for me to talk to them about salvation. And you know as well as I do, in our lifetimes, there's churches out there that people don't carry Bibles to church. They just go listen to whoever's up here telling them a message and go home, and they've done their duty for the week or on Easter and Christmas, and they're out of there. I'm going to ask you guys again, what I just said tonight, do you feel like this is the world we live in? Raise your hand and look around at everybody. How many of you feel like what I talked about is the world we're living in now? Okay, here comes the twist, because I've talked about this stuff before. I've got some different study outlines that I use. The things that I talked to you about tonight, I kind of choreographed after a study Bible from a preacher that put this exact stuff out there in 1991 in this country. 30 years ago, was feeling the same way about this country that I just talked to you about today, 30 years ago. And look where we're at now. That man's dead. Imagine what he would think if he came back to life and saw our great country where it's at today. He wouldn't want to be here. Not after he's experienced probably what he's experienced now. I just think if Jesus does wait and doesn't rapture us out of here, and his second coming is still years beyond, how much worse it's going to get. And you know it's going to get a lot worse if a good Christian conservative government doesn't get in there in this country. Let's look at John 16:33, and we're about ready to close. A couple verses that I said from this morning that I wanted to regurgitate tonight, and this is what I want to leave you with. John 16:33, these things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace, but in the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. And in 2 Timothy 1:7, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. Use your sound mind to read the Bible. Spread love. Spread the message of Jesus Christ. And don't be fearful, even if it gets a lot worse. If it does, and we can help one another out, let's help one another out. And if it does, and we have to step up and fight for this country, I'll do it. I'll do what's right. And don't fall into the trap that the devil wants us to fall into. Again, this is pretty much taken from a 1991 message, and here we are 30 years later. That pastor felt that way then. Look where we're at now. 30 years from now, most of us will be gone. If our children and our grandchildren are still living and his second coming hasn't taken place, God. Adolf.